copy is what keeps people on your website pages for longer, and that's going to circle back and benefit your SEO because Google is essentially all about serving up what people want. It's just a matchmaker, is what I always tell my clients with copy. It's literally just a matchmaker. And the more time people are spending on your website, it's like, oh, this website was really helpful for these people. I'm going to keep showing it to people.
Welcome to Coffee and SEO, where we sit down for a coffee hour together and simplify SEO, making it super approachable for your business. I'm Taylor, your host and the founder of Aligned SEO. And at Aligned SEO, we specialize in helping photographers, creatives, and service providers get visible online and reach their dream clients through holistic SEO strategies. Whether you're looking to increase your Google rankings, attract more dream clients, or just make sense of SEO, I will be your SEO guide and bestie. So let's simplify SEO, align it with your goals, and get your website working just as hard as you do so you can get back to doing what you love. Well, today I'm chatting with Hanneke, a website copywriter, and we're talking about personable content and SEO and how they definitely go hand in hand. So, Amy, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Taylor. I was so excited when you reached out. This is like one of my favorite topics by far.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's so important, but it's honestly hard for a lot of us. So I'm really excited to get an expert's opinion on how to like merge these two together and lots of different tips. So
Yeah.
I would love to start with just hearing a little bit more about you and your journey. As we talked about before this episode, you started in a completely different career. So I'd love to hear about your journey to copywriting.
Yes. So I have always been a person of many interests. I had such a hard time even picking a major in college because I wanted to do everything. I'm the kind of person that can find everything interesting and get really into
Mhm.
almost everything. And I eventually settled on what I felt like was a quote unquote safer career in healthcare, realized that it wasn't really where my heart was after working in the field for
Mhm.
several years. But throughout it, I had started a private practice and built my own website, learned how to write copy for myself. I had started helping entrepreneur friends with it. A lot of my roles were becoming a lot more communication based than
Mhm.
anything, like writing a lot of articles, appearing on podcasts, helping with outreach and things like that. And then when we started having children, I have two very small children, I have two toddlers. I decided to take a step back from corporate life and started my business, eventually taking away website design services and just focusing on copywriting. So I've done it all, but copy and writing and communication have always been the things that tie it together. And it's so fun to get to step into so many different businesses and communicate their value and what they're doing and get to know people that do all kinds of things.
I love that. I love that your journey started with like you in the trenches doing the things that you're now helping other people with now. I feel like that gives you a better understanding of what your clients might be coming in with or going through.
It really does. I feel like I've built a few different businesses, helped build several businesses from scratch. And it's always so fun to me to get to talk to people who are in similar positions to maybe even where I am now, having your
Mhm.
business established and working on scaling, or just now starting out and growing things. It is my absolute favorite.
I love it. I love it. And it's such a need. Like copywriting is not something that many people love doing, especially I think with our own businesses for some reason. I think it's always harder to work on stuff for our own business, but especially I
Yes.
think, I mean, not everybody's a writer, so I love that you can kind of fill that gap. So kind of talking about writing and SEO and all the things, I'm curious to know your opinion on how important it is to write copy that has like our personalities as a business infused into it.
Oh, 15 out of 10 importance. I cannot stress enough how important it is for your copy to sound and feel maybe not even like you, which we can get into. It doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily have to be overly personal. For example, in this moment, I just shared more about my personal life in telling you my career changes and about my kids than I have on my about page. And I still have a very personable website, which is what drives that connection. So, it is incredibly important, especially I know everyone is always talking about AI these days, but
Yep.
in the days of a lot of AI generated content, of people wanting to really truly connect with the people that they're working with, having your personality and your website sounding conversational and inviting is not only one of the things that makes or breaks your website success in terms of bringing you business and booking clients, but it's also one of the major things that helps you stand out because a lot of people understand the importance of SEO design. A lot of people do understand the importance of good copy, but the difference between a website that truly stands out, especially with like website templates and a lot of aesthetic options out there,
Yeah.
the difference between a website that looks good and a website that works is copy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is really where we're able to then communicate our
Hmm.
values and, like you said, personality and be personable and not just flat like AI can be.
Yes. Yes. And there's definitely a time and a place for using it. If you're listening to this and you've used AI to help you write your copy, there absolutely are ways to incorporate it. But on the whole, what your clients are looking for, or actually not even your clients, your website readers who want to become your clients are looking for is a person who can help them.
That is so true. Yeah, I think building that trust and authority and connection, I think is
Mhm.
becoming increasingly important. Well, it was always important, but I think especially now because I mean, we're being sold to everywhere. And I think most of us, yeah,
Mm.
when we're hiring someone, we want to make sure that the person we're hiring is a good
Hmm.
fit and that we can work
Absolutely.
with.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, how do you think, I guess, SEO and personality in our copy go hand in hand?
Yeah. So the biggest factor that I always have in mind, and it's more of a technical factor, but copy is what keeps people on your website pages for longer. And that's going to circle back and benefit your SEO because Google is essentially all about serving up what people want. It's just a matchmaker, is what I always tell
Ooh,
my
I love
clients
that.
with copy. It's literally just a matchmaker. And the more time people are spending on your website, it's like, oh, this website was really helpful for these people. I'm going to keep showing it to people. So the more interesting and conversational and relevant each page of your website is, the longer people hang out there, the more likely they are to inquire and stay on your website. And all of those things feed back into not only your SEO, but your bottom line too with your inquiries.
Definitely, definitely. I think on all the different fronts, like, I mean, SEO, but also like conversions, like you
Hmm.
mentioned, like engagement time, engagement rate, all of those
Hmm.
things are so they go hand in hand. Like you can't
Yes.
really have one without the other.
Exactly. Yeah. You truly cannot separate them just as much as design and SEO benefit each other. Design benefits both of those and they benefit design. So it really is kind of like a little network, and I always call it the trifecta of like SEO,
Mhm.
copy, and design to really make it
Totally.
work.
Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. I get a lot of people that inquire with me who maybe don't have a good web design, or maybe they don't even, some photographers don't even have like any copy on their website.
Oh, yes. That's my
Yeah.
personal. I love photographers so much. I love you all so much. But you guys, pictures is not enough.
It is really not for multiple different reasons, but I
Hmm.
think a big one being, standing out and connecting. It's really hard to do that through just photos. So,
Yes.
definitely, yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So you mentioned a little while ago that maybe in your copy you don't necessarily have to like reveal all your secrets to the world,
Hmm.
but there are some elements like personality and connecting, and I imagine like
Hmm.
showing genuine interest and empathy. What are some of those ways that we can include more of ourselves in our copy, but maybe not like revealing our whole, everything to the world if we don't want to.
Yes, yes. So when it comes to making things personable without necessarily sharing a ton, which is if that's your brand and your comfort
Mhm.
level, that's awesome. I love when people share all their lives. I'm like a big behind the scenes Instagram. Like I want you to make a
Yeah.
story about everything that you do. But if you are looking to add more personality, you don't necessarily need to add more aspects of your life. You just need to say it the way you'd say it in real life to a real person.
Ooh, yeah.
So I usually tell people, especially when I do a website copy audit where I'm coming in to just help edit and spruce things, is this actually how you would say it to a client or even someone on a discovery call or when you're emailing back and forth with them for the first time? Because that's the stage at which people are going to be reading your website too.
Mm-hmm.
But is this how you would say it? And if not, how would you phrase it? And how can we bring that into your website? Also thinking about who are your clients and how do they want to hear things? What do they want to hear and what do they need to hear in order to be ready to book? So the first thing I always say is before you hit publish on your website or any edits or if you're updating it, literally read your website out loud
Mm.
and see how it hits.
Yeah, that's a really good tip because I do imagine, yeah, I think my writing style even might be a little bit different than the way that I say things. So
Mm-hmm.
it almost would be like a practice for me to go in and like reread everything out loud. I bet there are some
Yes.
things that I'd be like, ooh, I don't say things like that, but it just doesn't come as naturally to me. But I think that's such a great tip because it should be as if we're like reaching through the screen and speaking to that other person.
Yes, absolutely. And you as a person, like we'll use your website as an example. I don't necessarily mean that you have to say every single thing exactly the way you say it out loud, but falling under the umbrella of your brand voice and your personality
Mhm.
as a business owner who is the front of their brand, we still want everything to sound like you. And it's also just good, in my opinion, customer service.
Mhm.
Because if you have this website that sounds fantastic, but it doesn't sound like you at all, when you hop on a discovery call with people or when you start working with them, they are going to feel catfished for better or for worse.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
I always think about like how can we bring your voice in, even if it's a different aspect of your voice. Like I am a little more polished, a little more put together on my website than I would be talking to a friend about how to grow their business versus how I would talk to
Mhm.
someone who just reached out to work with me about how to grow their business. It's okay for there to be multiple dimensions of it, but it should still, at its core, always feel like you.
Yeah, yeah, I really like that. And that is so true, I think, about, when you do enter that next stage of the sales funnel and hop on a call, you
Hmm.
wouldn't want this other person to think like, wait, is this the same person that I was reaching out to?
Yes.
But also knowing that, yeah, we have multiple different like ways of speaking and versions of ourselves, and maybe
Hmm.
it's okay to utilize some aspects of our personality and tone of voice and not all.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So how do you recommend like balancing? Because you mentioned it's about like the way that we communicate, but also what
Hmm.
the ideal client might want to hear or need to hear to take them to that like next stage.
Hmm.
How do you balance the two, or how do you discover like where they come together?
Yeah. So this is where I spend the bulk of project preparation with clients when I write
Mm,
website copy because it is, I find a lot of people who DIY their copy, and there's nothing wrong with this for the record. But a lot of people will kind of jump straight into the website itself without doing any kind of further discovery into who they want to work with and then in turn what
mm,
those people want from them. So the first thing I always start with is getting a good picture of who it is you want to be working with beyond the kind of the demographics and the cookie cutter facts.
mm,
A lot of times when I see, I don't even like using the phrase ideal client anymore because I feel like
mm.
it is so, it falls so flat at this point because you see all these profiles that are like, they're this age and they live in this area
Mhm.
and they do this thing. And maybe that's true for some. I certainly have written websites that are like a business that helps other businesses grow. And so, yeah, their target audience is entirely business owners, right?
Yeah.
But at their core, what they really care about is the problem they have, how
Mhm.
that problem affects their life, like why is it a problem, and how you can come help them fix it so they can see those benefits in their real life. So
Mm.
that's where I always start is with your clients. And then as you start outlining things, you start adding in, okay, what do I want to make sure that I say? And then go from there.
I like that. And it sounds like, yeah, for you and your clients, you guys go deeper than just the demographics and the description of this ideal client. It goes into like, yeah, those deeper the problems, how it's affecting their lives, the
Mm,
emotions, and maybe even yeah that solution that you offer. I really
yeah.
love that. That's so
Yes.
important, I think. And it's good that you make kind of that distinction between that ideal client that everybody talks about that
Mm-hmm.
is 30 years old and lives in this neighborhood. And I mean, it's great
Yes.
information, but I think it's helpful to use that to then get to the bottom of like, okay, what do they need and how do I solve that? So that's a really great exercise. I really love that.
Yes, absolutely. I see a lot of people worrying more about the information gathering
Mhm.
than kind of what you were just saying of how am I going to use that information.
Mhm.
And almost without fail, my entire copywriting kickoff calls with people is to talk about what that information about their clients and their business actually means. Like, what are we going to do with that information? How can we leverage it? Because again, like I don't really care if your ideal client is 16 or 35 or 60.
Right.
I care about how they feel about their problem and they care about what you're going to do about it. So,
Mhm.
everything always comes back to the emotion and the human side, which is
Yeah.
always a plus because obviously I mean, it's getting pretty smart, but ChatGPT doesn't have emotions. And
Right.
so the
Yeah.
more you can bring in an emotional, whether it's like full-blown emotion-driven copy or it's copy that like kind of touches on emotions more lightly depending on your brand voice, either way, that's what makes it more human.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up because yeah, things are definitely shifting with AI and AI as a tool. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I use ChatGPT. I talk to ChatGPT all the time, but I do
Mm-hmm.
think it's so important to not just take ChatGPT's output and just
Mm-hmm.
use it because it is really truly missing that human aspect and our personality infused in anything because it's drawing from just things on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm curious, like, if you have any tips or thoughts on utilizing AI for, I mean, writing anything. Like, how do
Mm-hmm.
you then take that and make sure that it sounds like us? Like, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I also use actually quite a bit of AI in my business, not for writing full client projects, obviously,
Mhm.
because that's my job.
Yeah.
But I really like its use for the ideation and the brainstorming phase
Yes.
of anything in business. So my first piece of advice for someone who's wanting to use it to save time or fill in the gaps for something is actually to treat it more like an analyst than your end stage writer for
Mm.
anything. So asking it or even giving it a brief of like, this is my like these are the people that I'm really wanting to work with. What else do I need to know about them before I start writing my website? And then you can keep going, almost like the conversation that we're having now of,
Mhm.
okay, and how can I bring that information through? What are some ways that they might phrase it? And you can pull from ChatGPT
Mhm.
directly for some lines if it's spitting out good stuff. But what I would do is really hone in on using it for brainstorming and reviewing. Use it to kind of sandwich your project with your content that you're writing in the middle. But I
Yeah.
also love running a project through it and
Mhm.
saying, based on everything I've already told you about this, like what would you strengthen? What would you change? I don't always agree with it, which
Right.
is my job, as a copywriter, that's
Yeah.
my job to kind of help sit there and discern. But if you use it kind of as the sandwich, not the whole thing, like the bookends of your project,
Aw.
it can make everything so much easier if you're DIYing it.
I 100% agree. I feel like AI is a really great like thought partner.
Yes.
Really great for ideas, content briefs, phrasing things. Although
Mm-hmm.
I will say sometimes the phrasing is kind of funky and very obviously AI, but it is
Yeah.
getting smarter.
Yes. Yes.
But it is a really helpful tool that we can utilize, but maybe in just certain ways and not to replace, not ever to replace our own voice.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And it does, like, it certainly can churn out some of that output, but I find that a lot of the people that I work with don't really want to spend the time or have the knowledge to train up an AI
Mhm.
model like that. And so, one of the things I like, especially if you're writing your own website, is just use it for background information gathering, get ideas from it. If you're stuck on something, ask it how you can get unstuck, but you don't have to ride or die by what it says. It's more just like I always think of it like a study hall. Like it's just like
Yeah, yeah.
someone else who's there. I liked your thought partner thing. It's kind of like a copy co-pilot, but it still needs to be you at the end of the day who's actually writing and delivering the
Hmm.
message.
Yes, definitely. And sometimes, I mean, AI gets its information from the internet and not everything is super accurate at times. So I've
Yeah.
noticed, especially with like experimenting with using ChatGPT for like keyword ideas or keyword research, it really kind of
Oh,
misses
it
the
has
mark
no
in my
idea.
opinion. It
It has
has
no
no idea.
idea. It has no
Yeah.
idea. I actually just asked it for something surrounding keywords for a project, and what it gave back, I was like, well, this is why I'm not really worried about my job. You know what I mean?
For sure. Like some of the things that it gives me, I would write an article about what not to use as a keyword.
Yes,
So I
exactly.
mean, it can be really good for keyword ideas, but then yeah, making sure to like take that content and like run
Hmm.
it through
Yes.
an accurate tool. But
Yes.
I think the same goes for like writing. Like you can ask it and you can even train it, but it won't, yeah, it can't replace a human. I hope it never can
Hmm.
replace a human.
Yeah.
Those are really good tips, I think, especially because a lot of us here are utilizing those tools.
Hmm.
Yeah, idea generation, thought partner stuff, really great
Hmm.
use of AI.
Hmm.
Talking about keywords now, I'm curious your thoughts on how to kind of balance now the SEO aspects and writing, like how to bridge that together, how to
Hmm.
make the writing sound natural, but also incorporating things like keywords.
Hmm. Yeah. So this is always an ongoing back and forth with any project, any page you're optimizing, any keyword you're doing. Sometimes the keyword, the best keyword for whatever you're working on, really does sound like the way you would say it in
Yeah.
conversation. But sometimes it's just not like the way that I would Google something is absolutely not how I would talk about that in a conversation with a
Mhm.
friend. So,
Mhm.
this is where I do a couple things. One, I do for core website pages, I always check data if I'm working with someone for SEO specifically on that. It's usually a big conversation of like how we can pull in certain keywords strategically and still make it sound human. But either way, I want to see how we can fit them into copy in a way that sounds as natural as possible, while
Mhm.
also acknowledging that depending on what the best keyword is for that page that you're working on, it might not. And
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes
that's
it
okay.
doesn't.
When that happens, I do like to kind of de-emphasize it if we
Yeah.
can. Sometimes I'll pull it into I'm talking a lot with my hands right now and realizing this is a podcast and no one can see me. But I'll pull it into like a really big conversational heading that catches the eye so that
Mhm.
the humanness is what catches your eye. But then we'll pull the keyword into either a little eyebrow heading that goes above your giant heading
Mhm.
or some body copy below it that supports it. And that's where, again, I keep coming back to this trifecta, but that's where I'm like, okay, well, we can bring it in as conversationally as possible. And you can also use the design to leverage where it is and how much it's visually emphasized if it's not one that's gonna flow like you talk.
Right.
And I think about that stuff when I'm writing because, website designer turned copywriter. I
Yay.
wireframe everything. I make sure it looks like an actual website when I'm writing inside of Google Docs. And so I actually will like leave notes for the designer, or if someone's DIYing it, I'll leave notes for them of like, keep this a little bit smaller, but still readable.
Mhm.
Make this really big so we can emphasize this point or whatever it is. So I think the biggest thing would just be get creative
Mhm.
about
Yes.
how big you're making things, how small you're making things, fit it in where possible,
Mhm.
um, and just do your best with it. But know that if SEO is your goal, which I'm gonna guess if you're listening to this podcast, it is, it's okay that you might have to sacrifice the perfection of a heading or two and a sentence or two to get the SEO juice in. We just want to make sure that you're also not adding fluff and filler because that's not good copy,
Mhm.
but I always say kind of padding it with really conversational copy around it. So if you're going to do it, if you have to sacrifice a sentence, I like to do it in like the middle of a paragraph where
Yeah,
someone's probably reading the top and bottom.
that makes a lot of sense. Kind of sandwiching it there
Hmm.
to sound a little bit more natural and human.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I like that, being creative with it, because you're right. Sometimes the keywords are strong, but they just don't fit into a natural
Hmm.
sentence or way of speaking. So I love that idea of
Yes.
being creative with eyebrow copy, eyebrow text, and then
Hmm.
incorporating it into like the middle of a paragraph, so that there's, yeah, more padding around it.
Yes. And that's where having considering the human side of design and the robot side of Google,
Mhm.
having them come together for the total effect is so helpful because Google does not necessarily say like, oh, this is like in the middle of a paragraph, so it must not be quite as important.
Right.
But we as humans literally read things and place the most importance on the first and last things that we read in a list.
Mhm.
So it's a way that I kind of leverage the humanness of writing and reading into how can we also keep this really streamlined for SEO and make everything work together.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it comes down to balancing, like appeasing
Hmm.
the humans and the bots, but I really do think like it's never, or I shouldn't say never, absolutes, but we shouldn't sacrifice appealing to the humans to just appease the bots, because I think the bots are
Yes.
getting really smart. The bots are getting better at understanding our content for the purpose of showing the most appropriate and useful content to its users. And so I think increasingly, I mean, keyword stuffing maybe worked like 10, 20 years ago, but it
When the
does
internet
not work
first came
now.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. No, we're not keyword stuffing. We're not doing that.
Mhm.
One thing I always think about when you're thinking about how do you keep the robots and the people all happy at the same time? The robots exist to keep the people happy. So whenever I'm talking to someone who's like kind of nervous to bring in that human side of things, just a reminder, Google literally exists to help people find what they're looking for. And if you
Yes.
find you're more likely to find it in a website that is engaging to read.
Mhm.
And in turn, that's going to circle back and make Google super happy. So at
Yes.
the end of the day, your goal and Google's goal are actually pretty similar.
Yes, that is so true. That's a really great point. Like Google does really exist to be that matchmaker, like you said before.
Hmm.
And so having very useful, valuable, helpful content on a website is just going to help, yeah, the bot
Hmm.
and the humans.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. So let's talk about blogging strategy, because that is so important for SEO, but also like involves a lot of copywriting.
Hmm.
So when it comes to a blogging strategy, what are your recommendations for, I don't know, SEO and copywriting, and what's going to be the most useful to ideal clients and conversions?
Yes. So my number one tip for blogging for SEO and conversions is to stop trying to make every single post perfectly SEO optimized.
I like that. Yeah.
For so many reasons. But one, it feels really creatively stifling in business to have ideas and feel like you're having to constantly run them through this net of like, well, would Google like it too? It
Mm.
doesn't always matter if Google would
Yeah.
like it
Yeah.
too, because when you think about, again, I'm going to bring in website design strategy. If your, hopefully, and it should, blog design not only has the current post content, but makes it really easy for you to see relevant posts, your featured posts,
Hmm.
additional posts, browsing by category. If all of that's in there, if someone finds their way to your website through a keyword search into
Hmm.
a blog post, but then they see a relevant post, that's exactly what they need to hear in that
Yeah.
moment, but maybe you couldn't get the Google juice for, and that's fine. That post is maybe even more valuable than the post. No, they're equally important. I was going to say it's more valuable, but I was like, well, they have to get there in the first place. It's equally important to have
Yeah.
posts that are there to build your brand, build the fact that your readers need to come to know, like, and trust you,
Mm.
and to say what you need to say or what you wish you could just straight up tell your
Yeah.
clients.
Yeah. Definitely.
So,
I think, yeah, like you said, both are so important. And I think they all kind of like circle and help each other too. Like if people are going
mm-hmm,
to that maybe less optimized but more helpful post, it's going to
mm-hmm,
increase your engagement rate. It's going to maybe boost your SEO in different ways and boost the traffic to
mm-hmm.
your website. I mean, there's definitely multiple ways to drive traffic to a post like that on different platforms, but I could see, yeah, it really does kind of circle around and help, all the other
Yes.
pages too.
Yes, it does. And it's such a snowball effect once you start getting posts that are helping your SEO, and then you get posts that are helping people stay on
Hmm.
your website after getting there.
Hmm.
That's still going to help your SEO in ways, just not quite as direct ways as adding a keyword to your
Yeah.
rankings. But it really does all come together. I have a guide if you want it. I have a free
Ooh,
guide
yes.
to like the blog post topics you need. I'm guessing you're linking me in the show notes. So it's
Yes.
hellococreative.com/topics. But SEO focus posts are in there, but there's also different kinds of posts that you can leverage to create a fuller client experience on your website and show off your expertise. And earlier, when we were talking about, writing website copy that's not overbearing and it's not super
Mhm.
robotic, linking to those blog posts from certain pages of your website is a great way to elaborate on it without shoving a sales pitch in everyone's faces all the time.
Yes. Yes, I
Hmm.
love that idea. And I think, yeah, an internal linking strategy is so important, but definitely
Hmm.
like keeping people on your site, giving them useful information, answers to their questions. Yeah, that's a
Hmm.
brilliant way to utilize those blog posts. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will link that free resource in the
Hmm.
description. That is honestly, that's so helpful. A blog topic guide. It's what we
Yes.
all need.
Yes. Yes. And that really does come back to like my biggest piece of advice would be, if you're gonna blog for SEO, just don't let that overtake your total blog
Hmm.
strategy. Think
Hmm.
about your blog more as a way to serve the people who are on the fence about working with you, who are wanting free value, even because if you're showing off your free value, imagine what your paid value must be like.
Right.
So, deliver a lot of value on your blog. Yes, use keyword driven posts to get people there,
Hmm.
but don't let that put you in a box when
Hmm.
it comes to what you're going to post and write about, because this is a very surefire way to stand out, is to think outside the box and get creative with
So
these post
true.
types as well.
That's so true. And I think especially, I mean, if all of your main pages on your website are SEO optimized, like reaching
Hmm.
for conversions and
Hmm.
ranking online, then you can utilize your blog
Hmm.
for multiple different reasons to reach all of the different buyer personas and serve different purposes. So I really love that. It should be more of a holistic, outside the box
Hmm.
strategy.
Yes, exactly. And it's what you were saying about internal linking is one of my favorite ways to think about maybe non-keyword focused blog posts that still enrich the experience.
Mm-hmm.
If you're listening to this and you're like, what are they talking about? I have an example. But for example, I am a website designer turned copywriter, and
Mhm.
that provides a ton of benefits for the clients I write for because I can picture it as I'm writing. I do it all with like the user experience in mind. But if that's not what you came to my services page to read about or my homepage to read about, it's not super relevant feeling. And so I have a blog post about it that there's no keyword for that. That's not a thing. But I have a blog post about it that's featured on my homepage
Mm,
at the time of this recording. And even just having the title there and a link to it starts planting the seed in people's minds about a different aspect of my work.
totally. Yeah, I love that and definitely so helpful. I think keeps people on your site. And then, yeah, when they go over there and get the value they need, likely they will reach out. They'll go back to your
Yeah.
contact page.
All
So,
those internal links, baby. I have that post linked
no
straight back to my
linking.
services page. It's a fun little circle.
A fun circle. We're all about like
Yeah,
cycles and circles today.
exactly.
I love it. I love it. Well, Amy, this was so useful, and I learned a lot and had a lot of fun chatting with you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Taylor. This was so fun. This is
Yes,
something I could chat about for literal hours. So thank you for
same.
having me.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. For listeners that might be interested in learning a little bit more about your services, can you like briefly share about your main offer?
Yes. So my main thing that I do is website copywriting, which is writing the core pages of your website. I also do offer like a blog post launch pack when I write your website. Sometimes people want to launch with a lot of content,
Mhm.
but my main focus is in writing your website itself and or your sales page itself. And I have a bunch of like little sub offers that I will add on to those like email welcome sequences, blog posts, like I mentioned, but website copy is really my bread and butter.
Yes, awesome. And as we can all tell, you're so knowledgeable and experienced with this. And so, yeah, it'll just be so valuable. I will link to your services page also in the description below.
Well, thank you. I'll see you guys there then.
And yes, yes, you'll see them there. And I will also link your socials if anyone wants to further connect with you, I think on Threads and Instagram, though I know.
Yes, because of SEO, I have officially quit Instagram at the time of recording this. Not quit it totally. I still hop on stories regularly, but if you want to find me on Instagram, I'd love to DM with you, but my feed is evergreen now
Love it.
because my website's doing it for me.
That's, I mean, that's just the biggest testament to SEO, and I just love that. That is the dream. So I will link all of those below if they want to connect with you more. Again, thank you so much for your time and for chatting with me. I had so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me, Taylor. This was so fun.
Of course, and thank you all for listening. I'll see you in the next episode.